Welcome, everybody, to episode 5 of the Renatus InvestEdge series. I get the unique opportunity of being Jay Stark today and introducing Jay Stark. So I just
That's not awkward at all.
Well, Bob is out of town, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this together. So I just wanted to bring Jay out. I mean, I got this really unique opportunity to come talk about you. I don't get the chance to edify you much, so
go ahead.
Yeah. And I'm not very good at this. But here's the thing: is the man that I'm going to call late at night when there's a problem, this guy. The guy that I know is going to be working late when there is a problem, this guy. Right? So Jay is incredible. He's our president. He's the guy that I rely on deeply, and he can go nowhere. I'm going to hand it over to you, Jay. I love you, brother.
You know, I love this new InvestEdge series that we have going. Like Matt said, this is our 5th episode. And while Bob Snyder is not in town this week, it becomes my unique pleasure to be able to host this call. The purpose of this call is really to bring to you the best real estate information that we possibly can, and then to have you be able to interact live with a practitioner, an individual who's making their full-time living doing what they're talking about, so you get to ask questions live with us. Now I hope that you guys take that opportunity. Make sure that you get your questions entered early so that we can get them answered. We tend to run out of time before we run out of questions. What happens is the questions start kind of slow, and then as the call goes on, we get more and more and more, and then we run out of time before we run out of questions. So with no further ado, I'm going to get into it. I have a couple of really exciting announcements for you, so buckle up because today's call is going to be awesome. So my name is Jay Stark. Like Matt said, I am the president of Renatus, but I love being able to tell you about Mr. Bob Snyder. Now, while he's out of town, he doesn't get to stop me from just telling you all the phenomenal things about him that I possibly can. First, I've worked with Bob for 14 years now, and it dawned on me about 8 years ago that I actually make more money in my real estate than Bob paid me, and I told him that. And as I told him that, he looked at me and he said, "Jay, now wait, what are you telling me?" He thought that I was like quitting.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you doing to me? And what I realized at that time was that I didn't have to work for Renatus, but instead I chose to. It became my distinct pleasure to say to Bob, I don't have to be here. I get to be here. I choose to be here. So I truly am grateful for being able to work with Bob Snyder, to be able to work for Bob Snyder, and to be able to build with him. Renatus truly is an embodiment of his vision, and I love seeing it come into the world around us. Now, with that said, I'm going to tell you a little bit about his vision coming to life in the form of the 2025 Renatus National Conference. Now, we have 3 full days of incredible training, all for the price of $447. But wait! There's more. We, of course, have an early bird discount going on. If you get your tickets before the 22nd of February, you're going to have the opportunity to get those for $50 less than our full price ticket. Now, let me give you just kind of a rough look at the lineup that we have coming at this national conference. I hope that you can see my screen right now because we have 23 presenters that are going to be live with us, and you will recognize most of these faces. Some of them might be a little foreign to you, but I can tell you that these individuals are practitioners. They are people who spend their entire day in, day out, their lives building what they're going to teach about. Our national conference is branded the E3 Summit because we are going to educate, equip, and engage with you. It really is focused on building inside of your real estate business, inside of your network, and we have a phenomenal time. We love to celebrate individuals. We love to tell the stories. We love to see the people build for events, follow up. I'm sure you've heard that before. But after we spend our first day getting educated by all of our practitioner instructors, we're going to spend our second day getting equipped. We're going to have the opportunity to hear from Bob Snyder, Woody Woodward, Matt Snyder, Jason Andrus, Bob Tierney, Jay Stark, all on day number 2, and we are going to have a blast as we go through this information, as we share with you what getting equipped with Renatus truly looks like. And then on day number 3, we are going to spend our time helping everybody to get engaged. Now, you may have seen on that first big picture that we have individuals like Dan Clark coming to our national conference. Dan Clark is a Hall of Fame speaker, an individual who has literally been to space before going to space was readily available. That might be a little bit of a misnomer, but it's not readily available, but he went to space because of the incredible value that he was building for the Air Force. He had an opportunity to fly in their U-32, and it was actually able to exit the atmosphere and see the world from a truly unique perspective. He has trained on almost every major stage that you can think of. He has personally mentored the 500, not the Inc. 500. What are they called? The Fortune 500.
Yeah, Fortune 500 company.
Yes, he has personally mentored CEOs from the Fortune 500 and even the Fortune 50, the top 50 companies in the United States. And he has done he's created an incredible legacy for himself and made a name for himself as a speaker, as a motivational coach, as a mentor, and he is going to be one of our 2 keynote speakers on that Saturday. The second is going to be a 2-time Paralympic gold medalist. He is an individual who's been confined to a wheelchair since he had an accident in his 20s. I'm not going to tell you much more about his story because I can't wait for you to get to meet Mr. Jeff Griffin. He holds world records. He has been teaching and training around the world, and it's going to be our unique pleasure to have him on the call, or not on the call. This is a call. We're going to have him on the stage with us at the national conference. All of this, again, for just $447. If you get your tickets right now, they are only $397 with our early bird discount. But wait, there's more. Bob Snyder has actually opened this up to try to include as many people as possible. Every year we hear that dreaded phrase, man, if I had known it was going to be this good, I would have invited more people. Well, we have decided to create a guest pass, an all-access guest ticket for only $95. That includes all 3 days of training as well as access to the awards banquet and ceremony, which is truly the place where the opportunity with Renatus goes from your head to your heart. You go from just understanding what the opportunity is to truly feeling empowered like you can do it. You're going to hear stories from individuals across the nation as they get recognized for their efforts and recognized for their accomplishments. And you're going to start to say to yourself, if they can do it, I can do it too. Not in a way that's putting them down, but in a way that makes you know that you are empowered. Empowered to go out there and become the change you wish to see in the world and especially in your own life. So make sure that you are not leaving anybody behind. Bring every single person with you that you possibly can to take part with us at that awards banquet and ceremony. If, for whatever reason, you have a guest that is unable to come to the awards ceremony but still wants access to the rest of the training, Bob made it so they only have to spend $30. For a $30 ticket for 3 days of incredible training, it is more than worth it. It is worth so much more than that. I hope that you spend your time building for this event and ensuring that every single person that can hear you, every single person that you meet with, understands the value that this event has and is prepared to be there. So be with us. That is March 20th through the 22nd in Layton, Utah. It's going to be an incredible event. If you want more details, just go to the Renatus calendar and then navigate to March. Make sure that you're on the state of Utah. You'll be able to find the event there on the calendar. It's got all of the details. Before we go any further, I want to give you an opportunity to like, subscribe, and make sure you hit the little bell icon so that you stay up to date with us, so that every single time that we go live here on our channel, you get notified and can take part with us live, or at least be one of the very first people to see this video and then add any additional comments. One of the many opportunities that we've had with the InvestEdge is that every single one of our presenters has come out here and been willing to, after the fact, go back and answer any questions that get asked in the comments. So not just during our live broadcast, but then after the fact, they've been willing to go back for the next week or so and look at those comments that are coming in. So make sure that you are liking and subscribing to this video so that you can stay up to date with us and take part with us every single week. Now, with no further ado, I am so excited to not just make an introduction, but to make an announcement. So today, we get to hear from an individual who is truly seasoned and experienced in the world of real estate investing. He's an individual who has become so proficient and prolific with the way that he runs his real estate business that we have asked him not just to be featured on our Renatus InvestEdge, but also to be the next Renatus instructor. Please join me in welcoming out to our call our newest, our latest and greatest, Mr. Bill Predebon.
Hey, can you guys see me and hear me?
Oh, Bill, you know what? I cannot hear you all of a sudden. I'm not sure what's going on. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you guys perfect. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Now we can hear you. You know,
right.
Bill, I got so excited about introducing you that I forgot to tell people what your class is. So we are calling this class From the Ground Up. Now, Bill, tell us a little bit about what that means to you.
Well, in a nutshell, it really means, obviously new construction, right? Or building the house from the sticks up, right? From the underground, where I'm acquiring a property that's already entitled, and we'll go through that in the class, obviously. But it's got utilities, it's on a street, it's got an address, and it's either what we call an infill lot or it's a tear down house, right? Someone's either previously torn it down and it's just sitting there, a vacant lot, or of course I purchased the property, or we purchased the property, but the property's old, obsolete, too small for the area, whatever the case is, and we tear it down and start from the ground up. Another way I like to think of it too is now I've lost that train of thought, so we'll just skip that part. I know what I was going to say is I really think of it as value add. So sometimes, and I'll differentiate a little bit in the class, I think, depending on the structure and the timing that we have, but ground up to me doesn't necessarily mean tear down all the walls. There are differences in permits when you leave up a couple walls. You tear down the rest of the house, tear off the roof, scrape the whole thing. You may even chisel away a lot of the foundation, but you leave a couple walls and you actually can get a simpler, faster, less expensive, different type of permit, which is a rebuild permit versus a new construction permit. And then we'll go through the differences and where the value differences are when you're reselling that property as well. Yep. So we're going to call it the ground up, and we're going to throw some twists in there, I think. Go ahead.
Well, no, that just sounds amazing. I am super excited for this class, but I know that you've prepared a little bit to kind of give people a sneak peek of what you have designed already. Do you want to share that with us?
I sure do. So, naturally, thanks you guys. And again, unfortunately Bob can't be here, but Jay and of course, Matt, I just can't thank enough the home team, you two in particular, of course, the absolute honor to not only be on InvestEdge, but this has almost been for lack of a better word, a dream of mine to be an instructor with Renatus, to give back in that format. I don't even know, I don't care. It has nothing to do with compensation or glory or anything. It's just so cool. And, honestly, with all of the workshops we've done and the real estate, what's the word I'm looking for? Study groups and all the different things we've done over the last decade, it's been so exciting and almost prepped for this opportunity and this chance to get out there and create an actual structured class, utilizing the experience. The majority, and Dane hit on this last week so well with the majority of all the classes that I've studied over and over again to put them together to create what we're talking about today, as well as the success that I've had. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great honor, and I can't thank the home team enough, and the people that work with you alongside you guys every day, and and I'm grateful for Renatus naturally. And so this opportunity to me is one of the best I've ever had, and I'm very appreciative. I'm very grateful. Michael Huggins, always having my back and really giving me the opportunity to be in the spotlight on our different team calls and trainings that we do, and then to put in a good word for me. I just really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we feel grateful to be able to feature you and to have you. But yeah, take it away, man. I want to hear a little bit about what you have planned.
Well, I have to tell you, and again, folks, we haven't gone through where I need to be as far as parameters and everything with the class. But, you know, the truth of the matter is that I really embrace the Renatus wealth cycle. You folks have heard me say this before, but, you know, I've had the opportunity because of the Renatus wealth cycle, the opportunity to introduce people to the community members that I have, to really find a lot of opportunities in finding deals. So I'll talk to, you know, the first part about, you know, finding the deal. But prior to finding the deal, I think it's important that we understand the value of new construction. Like, to be honest, it's, you know, and again, I don't know what I'm going to be allowed to say, but it's not difficult. It's not rocket science or anything like that. It's just a different strategy of flipping a house, if you will, or even building a house to hold. And so the interesting thing is that what I like about this strategy for the next, really forever, naturally, but realistically in the next 5 years, there is such a deficiency of housing that we've talked about. And we'll get into even some of the things that are going on right now with what's going to happen to incentivize investors to create what you consider low-income housing. And it's interesting, the government now, the newer government is not putting it on the burden of the investor to do so and spend money. They're actually going to put it on the government to go ahead and incentivize people that can still make, because we make so much more money necessarily, usually in the formulas on higher end houses, that it doesn't make sense for us to build the smaller end houses, and what, for lack of a better term, or you know, low income housing, whatever you want to, affordable housing, whatever term you want to give it. So they're gonna make it easier for the governments to get us permits, to get through permitting, to get through drainage and grading, to get through architectural, you know, not months and months and months of carrying costs and holding costs and predictions down the road, all this red tape. And it's really going to be cool to see what comes about, where the government can work with investors and creative investors to go ahead and create housing that's affordable for any price point, to be honest. But in your neighborhood, you know, when I look at the different options, the first thing I want to look at is what's going to make the new construction stand out, right? And not in itself, but why build new construction versus just flip a house? And so that's one of the things about this strategy, is it is simple to see the other things going on. Now, remember, I'm not necessarily building houses near tract homes, right? When we look at tracts, and we can, you know, in the class, we'll explain that. If you're not familiar with a tract home, Google it. But these parcels are being divided into hundreds, you know, of different, you know, from anywhere from 50 or more, you know, not that that's the right number, but large tracts of properties into the hundreds, where they're building 4, 5, 6 models at a time, and they are and then that is in the typical price point of that particular area. And, you know, you've got $150,000 price difference from the lower level to the higher level, whatever the case is. I'm not necessarily building a house right next to that lot. I'm building houses in places that are older neighborhoods, or neighborhoods that are turning over. They're becoming more evolved. They're growing. There's more, you know, there's more commercial and industrial around them. And so these older houses are they're obsolete in that area. And so you can, as an investor, we can see that someone else is paving the path for us. And we just have to go along and jump on the train. It doesn't take a lot of due diligence in that way. So you can start to see that pretty easy. It also comes down to when we're proofing this plan, right? When we're going to get financing from and I'm going to be talking about, you know, construction loans, just hard money and private money loans to buy and do the property, full-blown construction loans and getting asset loans, even going into DSCR loans, where we're actually going to be able to refinance out of the construction loan at the end if we want to keep it and not sell it, and we want to Airbnb it, short-term rental it, long-term rental it, whatever we want to do with the property, put it in our portfolio, and then even getting private financing. It's easy to proof this house. You can get a couple of bids from contractors. You can do your own numbers. You can price it out yourself, especially with all the pricing software, even that Renatus iOS offers. And all of a sudden, you can see what it costs to build. You can see what it costs to carry. You can see how long it takes. And it's very easy to see what new construction price per square foot is selling within a certain zip code or a certain half-mile radius. It's not complicated, right? The only difference is whether it has a pool. And then you're going to we'll talk about, I mentioned here, we want to make, there are some issues we're going to go over too. But the differences will be a little bit of the finishes and the layout and, of course, the square footage. But it is easy to proof this property to an investor or a bank, or not a traditional bank, but even then, but a hard money lender, construction money lender, DSCR lender, and they can look at it and go, yep, that looks pretty good to me. I will lend on that project. It's not this complicated fix and flip where you're guessing what you're going to put into it. You're guessing the time on the market and all that stuff. It's a little bit more cookie cutter. So I really like this strategy, and you can almost do your own math. So let me give you an example. For example, I know in 85016 and 85018 where I live right here, houses are now selling. One just set the market at $754 a square foot. It's 3,300 square foot. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Ouch.
On a lot that's 6,900 feet.
Whoa, that
That
is.
I know. Is that crazy, right?
Wow.
So what's interesting is, and I'll give today, I'm going to give this example of the house that I just did over the last, finished it 2 years ago was the last one I finished. A year and a half. And that one, what was I going to say? I'll give you the numbers example, but I was able to build that with the contractor doing all of the raw materials and all of the framing and the roofing and all of those things, not finishes and fixtures. And I'll get to that in just a second, but I'll go over those numbers where I'm able to buy the property for a certain price. And then I'm able to give him a certain amount price per square foot. So in this case, it was $110 a foot and it was 3,300 foot. And then I did some extras. So it was about $450. And then I was into it for $450 when I bought it. I had to pay off a private money lender for $100. I had $50,000 in care, and I'll pencil this out for you, go slower. But my point is that you can really easily calculate that if houses are selling and your comps are $700 a foot, and you're into it for $500 a foot, and you got a 2,000 foot house, you know that you have $200 times 2,000 is an $80,000 profit, right? It's fairly simple math when it comes to where your profit's going to be, depending on how much it costs to put in there, right? But that's why it's really nice, because all you need to do is, especially building 2 stories here for views in the mountains in downtown Phoenix, Camelback is right here and so on and so forth. When I go up 2 stories, I can put 2,000 foot levels. I'm anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 feet, and I'm building it at $250 a foot, and it's selling for $750 a foot. And I've got 4,000 square feet, and I'm making $300 a foot. It's a $1.2 million deal. You could screw it up and make $500,000, right? So we'll talk about it's nice, easy math, and we're not messing. And listen, I've done real estate fix and flips, as you guys know, a couple hundred of them. And no matter if you just do lipstick on a pig, you're still dealing with some electrical, you're moving a little plumbing, you're moving a little island, you're still dealing with 15, 18 trades. It's the same amount of trades that you deal with when you're building a house. And everybody likes to come in on a nice blank canvas, throw in their electric, throw in their plumbing, throw in their HVAC, throw in their drywall, throw in their insulation. Then you put on the drywall, then you put in the paint, then you put in the fixtures, then you come back with an electrician, back with a plumber, back with an HVAC guy, roofer goes in between, and you got a landscaper going in between. And it's just a really simple process versus a very difficult, or I shouldn't say very difficult, but a little bit more chaotic fix and flip. Right? So I really like the opportunity that new construction or ground up offers us to be able to kind of do simpler math and calculate really good price points to start with.
That is incredible. As you're walking through that, I'm like, oh man, that makes so much sense. Because you're right. You need the same number of tradesmen, whether you're doing a fix and flip or you're doing from the ground up. It's the same number of professions that you're dealing with. And they really do prefer working in that clean environment where they're not having to work around furniture or anything else. They're just going in there. They can blast through it really quickly and get it done.
You know what else is great, Jay? When you talk about that, exactly what you're talking about, when I have an architectural plan, I'm working directly with my architect and we're building the house. But what's cool is he's not picking every fixture, but he's got the brand of toilet, the brand of HVAC in there. He's got this, he's got where the ceiling fan's going. I don't have to go unless I want to do some change orders. I want a custom. So I call these houses semi-custom. I'm not a full-blown custom building a house for Jay and his wife and his family and they're 5,000. That's a custom home. He hired me to build this house and he wants it exact. This is a semi-custom spec home, right? This is a spec home that I'm envisioning, but I'm putting out there in a very neutral palette and a very neutral landscape so that a lot of people will like my plan, right? So the architect with their experience is they're going out there picking the ceiling fans, telling me how many can lights are going to be, how high the plugs are going to be. So when my trades go in there, I'm not making any judgments. They already have the plan and they're building it per plan. They're buying the materials, they're buying the roof, they're buying everything that me and the architect have already decided. And the architect literally, you could click on it, put it in the Google search, and the guys know where to go get it and how much to buy.
That's
awesome. I'm just going to change. Yeah, it's really cool. Like it takes a lot of the guessing of having to work the fix and flip as a fix and flipper, right?
Yeah. So how do you decide? How do you look at a property and go, you know what, this one's going to be a lot easier from the ground up than this is one that I can actually fix up and flip quicker?
So one of the great questions as well. What I love is it's. I don't know every area, but I would say in larger cities and even in some rural areas, right? When you have to know the area and drive the area, like they say, invest in your backyard, right? So I'm most of my builds that I've done a half a dozen of them over the last, since COVID time, all around the area I live in. So I'm driving up and down all these roads and I'm seeing houses go up, right? If I can imagine in some of the rural areas when you're driving down a country road and everyone has like 5 acres or whatever they have, even then you might see new houses going up. It's interesting is when I go down the street a ways on 48th Street and there's properties, roads called Invergarden, oh my God, Lafayette. Every house was gorgeous and they were 5,000 feet and they were old ranch homes on 1.5 acre lots, 2 acre lots, and everybody lived there. But all of a sudden, all the IT money started coming here and all the professional sports money, and every one of them's getting scraped. So right there, when you get your hands on that house, it's a scrape. The next level down would be, okay, it's a little more complicated. Then I look at houses, for example, on the MLS that have been sitting there a while and the house is livable. Oh, it's move-in ready, cleaned up. They put in a new countertop, but you walk in there and then you look at everything else on the MLS and no one wants to buy the house, right? Because they cleaned it up and they put in some granite countertops, but the house has the bedroom that's a 6x8. You know what I mean? And the master bedroom doesn't have a bathroom in it. There's no ensuite. There's no walk-in pantry. All of these things become obsolete, even for like a 2,000-foot house. They have a carport instead of a garage. Everything that everybody expects in normality today needs to be replaced and is now available. People will pass up on that house. So therefore, especially if the house is, 90 or older, right? Not 90 or newer, but 90 or older, you can assume that everything is pretty bad. The HVAC may last 30 years, but it needs to go. Even if it's newer AC, I'm taking it out. I'm selling it on Craigslist. All of that is just going. And you can tell by either a house is on the MLS for a long time in a market where everybody knows things are selling, even if it's not priced right. And then also I look at some of the areas where you can just see that the size of the house is smaller than everybody else around you. They've either done an addition and I'm talking the whole zip code or just that half-mile radius. They've done an addition. They've added a garage. Somebody has lived in their house and then they've spent some money improving it. The rest of the people that have lived in this house and grew their family there, and then, maybe someone inherited or the parents are just old enough to move out. And unfortunately, they just never decided to put any money back in the house. So the house is so old and never improved. That is a scrapable house. They didn't change the wiring. My dad, for example, bought his house in 1976 and he lived in that house for 45 years. And I did the math and was going over everything, looking at what the value was so I can show it to the appraiser. And there's nothing old in there. It's got new electric, new plumbing, new roof, new siding. They did the basement. They did a way that the basement doesn't drain anymore and use foundation. They did flooring, then plus the cosmetics that is visible to the eye, but new insulation downstairs in the basement, foaming that no one would normally ever do, right? That's what the HELOC is supposed to be for, so you can improve your property. And most people don't do that. So when you notice that, it used to be just a fix and flip, but nowadays, man, with the lack of housing and the lack of desirable housing, the unfortunate bad name of a lot of the construction issues over COVID for 2.5 years with lack of supply. When you talk about like RVs that were made after 2019, you may consider not buying those and buying older ones because they were forced to be built so quickly. There was lack of supply of all of those materials as well. So the bad name on fix and flips, the new construction has a 2-year warranty on everything possible in the house, even flooring, all of that, 30-year roof, 30-year HVAC, all of these different things that people feel much more value in than they used to, right? When it used to be just a nice, white, clean fix and flip back in the days. When I say back in the day, I mean all throughout 2010 to 2020. But things changed in 2020, and now we have that lack of building that we're still seeing from back in the crash, even through the lack of COVID building. And now it's still 5 million properties that we're short on new housing that needs to be built, let alone fix and flips.
Yeah. I had an opportunity to serve on a city council for a short time, and I realized that the government had changed the wording from affordable housing to attainable housing. And I love how you talked about how the governments are really looking into, state and local municipalities are looking into making zoning easier and easier to work through, because they understand that a lot of these changes need to happen in order to bring more people into their municipality. Tell me a little bit about what your experience has been working with different cities, different municipalities on their zoning boards, on their zoning commissions, and what the difference is. So you talked about leaving a couple of walls up versus an entire scrape. What does that look like as far as the ease of getting the approvals?
Well, I will tell you that it is to this day very difficult in most. I can't imagine it's much different than any other major city, but dealing with the city of Phoenix, my friend went 18 months waiting for his build-up plans right behind one of my houses. The last house I did, the house that I'm finishing right now, took me 13 months to get a permit to build. 13 months. And that was right at COVID, right after the first year of COVID. So it was like 2022 when I bought that house and waited a whole year. Fortunately, I actually rented it out. It was technically livable. I had to put in a new hot water heater for the guy, and he paid a way discounted rent because you and I would never live there, not in its condition. It wasn't something I put on like Craigslist and rented out at all. I would never take responsibility because I knew the guy. He needed a place to kind of hang his hat for a minute. He cleaned it up a little bit, and then he basically was kind of off the grid living, if you will, but it was running water and electricity. So I rented it for those 13 months, but my buddy had scraped it. The city of Phoenix lost his permitting, his entire set of plans at 18 months. It took him 24 months to get a permit to build. The crazy things are going on now. So a little while back, Phoenix said, we're going to make a little more money. And I tell you, I don't even know the reason, because they've known where the flooding zones are here in Phoenix. You guys know the ground's hard, no saturation, so it just runs off. And we know where it floods and where it goes. Scottsdale Road North gets flooded. We know all this. We know the canal, everything. But all of a sudden, anywhere in the city of Phoenix, you build over 500 square feet, addition or anything else, you've got to do a whole new drainage and grading plan, which is an extra like $500 permit. And then you got to have all these engineers come out. You got to do all these things. And now you got to stick a hole in the front of your house that fills with water if it floods, which it never floods there, right? But every single house now has this stupid little green grass hole. And it's just these things. And the other thing, folks, that changed was, and I believe probably in most places, is most cities took advantage of, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, of cutting back costs by getting everybody to work from home, not come into the office and the city, right? It was all government. Everybody had to get vaccinated, whatever the case was. So then they go ahead and fire or lay off or change everybody's jobs So no one's going out and doing inspections. They only had 4 inspectors. They went down, they changed their whole system on how to get a permit so you wouldn't come, because you used to go in, you get the plan, you go from each window. I mean, we had 15, 18 windows at the city of Phoenix. You go down with your GC, you could go right into planning and development. You could figure out where your red lines were, run it back to your architect, run it back down. Nobody could go into the city of Phoenix. Now you still can't. I mean, you can go down there, but no one does anymore because everything's back online. They put in all this new software. It totally changed everything, made everything harder and more complicated. It costs more money, all these things. And it's going on in all the municipalities. So, people are trying to get everybody's, and it's not like, oh, your permit's going to take 6 months. Yours is going to take 3. Nobody knows how long it's going to take anybody to get through. And it's crazy. So I think the federal government, and you heard Trump even say this, we are going to incentivize the cities and local municipalities and the state governments to absolutely incentivize investors, not just through, long-term tax breaks, which I think larger investors take advantage. They pool some money, they do some sort of fund, and then they got these guys who are going to be tax exempt after they hold it for 10 years. But the average Joe building houses, even a smaller builders, that's not their incentive. Their incentive is cost and time cost of money. We need to get a permit in 30 to 60 days and tear down the house and start building it, dig the freaking ground up, pour the concrete and go, right? And then we can build a house in 6 months and we can make 300-400 instead of you need to make $1 million. And then we can sell $500,000 houses, make 200 grand, but we did it in 6 months. So if we do that twice, we can make the same 400 and build 2 houses than the time it would have taken us to build a half a house.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the rest of us, we would want to make 500,000. We don't want to make 200,000 because we're risking $500,000, right? So it doesn't make sense for us. And no one's buying 750 houses. Those are the houses that they have the interest rates are affecting. They're people's first even houses nowadays with some salaries, right? In IT world, engineering world, even some of the sales world, or it's their second house. But everybody's working 2 jobs. They got to have reserves and they can't afford the house because the interest rates went up. So no one's buying anywhere from 500 to 1.2 million, even 1.5. Those are not second homes. They're not investment properties. Those are people's live-in homes. It's gone from 350 to 700. Now it's 500 to 1.2 million. So no investor wants to buy that house because it's going to sit on the market. You're going to need someone to have a down payment, qualify for the loan. I'm building $3 million, $4 million houses, $2.5 million. They're paying cash. They're pre-buying them. And then they're fixing them themselves after we buy it. Because the interest rates don't even affect them. They're second homes, investment, high-end Airbnbs, that sort of thing. That they are commercial contracts they do with a lot of the companies that come in and rent out the whole house, or they have it just as a second home and then rent it. So those people have the cash and they have the money just to pay. They don't care about the interest rates. So that 1.5 and above, we make more money and we sell it quicker and we don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. So why would we build the $750,000 house, the $500,000 house, and try to make 100 grand when we're building it for 400? It's such a high risk.
Yeah.
You screw that up, or it takes too long, the municipality takes too long, and all of a sudden you got 50, 60 grand in carrying costs for 14 months, and you're half your profit's gone. I mean, you haven't even started the project yet.
Yeah.
Right?
I know in the state of Utah, there was talk about the state going through all of the cities and mandating a certain percentage of the city be set aside for high density housing. And a lot of the little cities in Utah, they really don't want that. And so one of the things that cities are proactively doing is making the zoning requests for ADUs a lot easier, a lot simpler to get through, so they can start to increase their housing without necessarily creating that high density zone that they're trying to avoid. You and I talked about that briefly. Can you kind of introduce people to the idea of what an ADU is? Yes, absolutely. So these next 2 new builds that I'm doing right now, I'm putting ADUs on them. And I would recommend, so first of all, everybody, ADU is additional dwelling unit. And it originated in California due to the lack of land. And it's been available out there for quite some time. In fact, I've heard rumors, and I don't know if it's passed. I haven't researched it at all, but I understand you might even be able to put now two ADUs on some California property just because of the lack of housing. So what it's saying, you guys, is if everybody, we'll go through this, some of
some of the things like this in the class, but I'll tell you, this zoning is most properties within Phoenix for single family are zoned R1, residential one family. That means one family can live there that's all related. It could be 8 people in a 2-bedroom, but you better be related, right? If there's anybody paying rent in that house, you can rent out rooms and stuff like that. They're not going to catch you on that. But for the most part, you can't have another property or in a separate area of the house have a second stove and a separate living quarters above the garage or anything like that, because it's a separate family that is interpreted as someone who would be living there as a renter. And in that case, it's not zoned for that. So instead of what Jay is exactly speaking to, instead of the government's going, we've got to rezone all this, we got to pick which ones, we got to see how big the lot, they're just like, let's just let people, let's build this exact formula of how high and how big and how many square feet this little living unit can be, and let them rent it out to 1 or 2 people in this little area. So depending on the size of your house and your roof elevation, the lowest point on your roof, then your house roof will be lower than that, and your size of your square footage will be a percentage of the size of your house and the size of your lot, and you'll be able to put it in a certain destination, and you can build a little unit. You could even have a tiny home lifted up and craned over your house, set down, as long as the municipality allows you to affix it to the ground and the utilities can run to it, and you've got water, sewer, and electric and trash and all that, and access and a parking spot. You're good to go. You can and now you can rent that out. You can have everybody can have their mother-in-law there because she's family. But now you can literally have an income opportunity as well as extra housing, and the government they don't have to govern it as much. They don't have to worry about any complaints from neighbors because they're renting on a non-zone, it's not zoned for the right type of people living there and that sort of thing, right? So even a normal house can be rented out to one family, right? You can technically rent it to one family. So now you can have multiple families on a one family zoning. And awesome. I recommend, your house has every city, every municipality has a certain lot coverage. When you build a house, you can only cover the amount of overhang on the roof or the roof itself, square footage over land. Has to be depending 48%, 46% of the entire property, and the rest has to be ground and your driveway and sort of things like that. So we'll talk a little bit about moving addresses even on some of the more complicated houses, because sometimes you don't want your address to be a busy street, so you just turn the house a little bit when you rebuild it, or even if you're doing and I'll go to the two, keeping the two walls, but even if you're doing just some value add and you're just adding some square footage or whatever, but you've got a bad address because it's on a busy street, well, turn the garage here and kind of relay out the property, and you can all of a sudden alleviate that where people aren't pulling off and turning off a major street. And so you're still going to lose the 20,000 or, the 5% of the house value based on the fact that it backs to a busy street, but at least you're not pulling off a busy street or onto a busy street, and your front door doesn't look out to a busy street and your kids and your dogs run out into the street. Is the idea. It's a perception that the buyer will have now. That's a better perception.
That's awesome. I am super excited for this course. Before we really open it up to the individuals that are on the line with us to take any of their questions, I would love for you to just take 1 or 2 minutes and tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started, what classes really resonated with you, how long you've been in real estate, all of that fun stuff.
This is so fun for me. I'm so grateful for Renatus and I've known Bob now since the last company and gotten to know you guys fairly well over the last, what I would say since 2017, I guess, when I really re-engaged with Renatus full blown again. And, I've been in real estate now 15 years. And, when I started, I will tell you just briefly that, I started at a place when I was 38. I was very broke. I was coming out of a failed business for odd reasons. I'll probably elaborate a little bit more in the class, and my stories on YouTube a little bit and that kind of thing. But to keep it short and simple, I had zero credit. The credit was in the toilet after bankruptcy. My car was repossessed 3 days. My sports car 3 days before my wedding at my house when 20 people were there, including family and friends. I was upside down in 2 properties that I convinced my girlfriend at the time, which became my wife, to buy in her name. I was upside down. We were upside down $390,000. I was $100,000 in credit card debt. I had no retirement, no job, no income, no savings. and no credit. But I had desire, and I was resourceful. When I saw the opportunity to get started with Renatus, I didn't wait for someone to really tell me how. My first thought was, okay, I've got to do this in order to get there, right? I got to go to A to get to B. So I went out and found someone to invest in me so I can invest in Renatus, and then I can invest in myself. And then I can pay them back with that investment, kind of like someone sending me to college, right? Send me out to learn a skill set, and then I'll be able to go out in the world and utilize the skill set and pay you back. So I was able to do that. And I got started with Renatus, and now I've been here doing real estate for 15 years. I've probably done I've done just about every transaction that is known. I haven't really done a warranty, a deed for contract that Dane was talking about, but a similar thing. But the number one thing I'm going to talk about in the class, and I think we're going to elaborate on, is understanding mortgages and where people are coming from that are buying. I think is critical. Understanding money, and I love private. I love the private money and partnerships class. I love the hard money class. I love the understanding bankruptcy class, understanding mortgages class. I love tax and legal. And then I love utilizing the strategy classes. But when you look at a class like Investor ID and you understand what it is you want to do, and then you understand all of the background around borrowing those funds and what can happen, and kind of the red flags that we're talking about. We're going to talk about those, like some of the things that, and we'll talk a little bit about, a lot about, some of the issues you may have in new construction. But those classes combined with borrowing hard money, private money, owner financing subject to fix and flip, and new build, fix and flip and rehab are a little different as which we now have in the school. And you really don't need to worry about too much about land development in this case, because the land is entitled. It already has everything put in place. You just need to scrape, get rid of the foundation, get the permit, and get the plans for the house. And then you can, dig the tunnels, put in the underground, and then lay the concrete and go ground up. And I really like that opportunity there. So it takes less time, right? It's not a land type class. It's after land basically has been developed, and typically a house has already been there, or it's at least in an area where there is all of those things have come in. And so those classes all combined really make the difference. It's having that knowledge. I will tell you, I've seen people that have either just not studied or really even general contractors, extremely successful general contractors, build houses from the ground up. And they are so keen on perfection and just having what they would want to live in. They over improve. It just costs too much. If nobody else has brought the lines from above the house and onto the roof, and no one else has put the electric underground, don't spend the $5,000, even though it's only $5,000 on $1 million build, to put it underground. It takes time, energy, permits, all kinds of problems, and no one else is doing it. No one's going to not buy your house because you didn't when everybody else's new construction has the lines coming from the top. You guys know what I'm talking about? The power lines come from the top. Don't reinvent the wheel till everybody else in the area is doing it. And, you don't need a tankless hot water heater that costs $2,800. You need a freaking hot water heater that works, that's big enough for the size of the bedrooms you're using. You know what I mean? These are the types of things that I see. We want to make sure that we protect our investors, but also that we have enough money that if we're going a year without making a paycheck, we got to figure out a way to pencil in some money for ourselves. Who wants to work for free, right? Nobody. We've got to consider these things when we're doing all this. So those are the kinds of things that the classes have taught me, and the experience has taught me. And I think along with the class knowledge, then my class and my experience put together will be able to create a very unique class, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. I am really looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to share and learning more from you. But instead of me compromising the rest of our time together, Matt, let me turn it over to you, and let's see what questions have come in on the YouTube.
Well, first one is this live right now? Yes, it is. We are airing right now. This is not a replay or anything like that. The other, let's get down here. People are pumped. Ryan Dodge says, dude, this is freaking awesome. I'm pumped for you, brother, and super excited for your class. Bill, you really dropped a lot of knowledge on this call. Jeremy Farrell asks when this class will be shot and available for us as students. That's probably more of a question.
Do we have a date yet? I know we've got an idea, but is there a hard date yet, Bill?
There's not a hard date, but I'm fairly certain we're doing it in April.
Yeah.
Right after Nationals. Yep.
April. Good enough. Good deal.
But did you guys notice that Bill's picture was part of that national lineup? Bill is going to be one of our presenters at the national conference. So if you want to learn more, guess what? Come to the national.
Be there. Chuck Hodge asks, is this statewide or just certain counties?
I don't know what this is, but I would say it's very nationwide. I would say that it's very common that there is a system. Is he asking about ADUs? I'm not really sure. So I will tell you, and Jay, I'm pretty sure Utah, Arizona, Nevada, they've all passed the full-blown ADU law on any R1 housing zoned housing lot. So if you have a house and it's R1, you can put an ADU if you're on any of these Western states. There's definitely on the Eastern and middle Midwest states, there's more land and more opportunity. There's not as much congestion. I don't know what their demand is for the ADU versus changing the zoning. But out west here, with the lack of land and the amount of growth in these larger cities and areas, Denver, Colorado is also one. ADUs are allowed. It is now available. You can just simply apply for an ADU permit. It's very quick. You throw in your plans. It's not nearly as tedious and long. And there's typically no D&G unless you're at about 1,000 square feet, which is a very big ADU. They're more like 400 to 800 square feet for ADUs.
So how do individuals find out what their municipality accepts as far as ADUs? Where do they go for that information?
So that is awesome. Anybody at any given time, and I do it all day long, you just call your cities, and it's your city. It's your city planning and development, right? That you live in. So whatever city you live in, it's the planning and development. And if there is no city municipality, then it is a county, and then you call your county planning and development. And that's all. It's planning and development, construction hotline. And there will be someone there to actually answer the phone. They're usually working at home now, and they have all that information. Worst case scenario, as you want to get into more detail, I'll spill the beans right here real quick, is the architect I've been working with lately. My broker went out and researched on MLS and at the city the architects with the least number of red lines. And what a red line means is you draw up your plan, you and the architect work it out or whatever. The architect themselves just draws it all up, and they put in and they've got the max load and everything from the HVAC to the engineering to all this stuff. It's all done. They go to the city and you go to get a permit, you go to get the plan approved, and all of a sudden the city just starts redlining. This is wrong, I need this. And you get all these red lines, and you go back to the drawing board, then you get less red lines, and you go back to the drawing board, and all of a sudden they're going back to the drawing board 3, 4, 5 times. Each time takes 4, 6 weeks of interaction between you, the architect, money, the city, and everybody else before you get this approval. Next thing you know, it's 4, 6, 8, 10 months, let alone the city's problems. So these are just architectural problems to just get through red lines. So if you're only getting red line once or red line twice, and he's submitting it a second or a third time and getting an approval, that's a good architect you want on a single family build. It's not always like getting a referral from Matt because Matt's a realtor for your best friend, but he hasn't sold a house in 2 years. Yes, he's a realtor, but it doesn't mean that he's ready to be selling a house except for maybe himself or his brother. You know what I mean? So you don't want to just get a good referral for an architect. You may want to do a little research. But on top of that, these ADUs can be done. I can't remember where I was going, but these ADUs can be done pretty quickly.
No, that's a pro tip right there, man.
Yeah, it is.
Go and look at who has the fewest red lines. That's who you want to work with because they know the area that you're building in. That's a great tip. All right,
and then
man,
your architect.
Let's see what else we got.
Yeah. What else?
Well, gosh, I think you've answered probably most of these with just what you've just said. Chuck was asking about ADUs, so that's good. Deborah says, can even be a converted garage. I don't know if that's a statement or if it's a question, if it can be a converted garage. Maybe you could answer.
But that is true. It can be a convert. You can actually put the ADU on top of the garage now, and you can put in a 220 and have a stove. Of course, all this stuff's going to go through permit. I mean, again, it's not Wild West. You can get away with it, but if you get caught, you might have to tear it down, or at the very least, you're going to have to open it all up and explain everything and get all the engineering. I mean, you're going to have a stop. They'd kick the person out. You'd have to put them up in housing if they're already in there. I mean, there's a lot of bad things that can happen with avoiding the city. I don't know what the class is going to allow me to do, but I know. I mean, I know times when I'll walk the gray line, but when it's definitive, you definitely want to use the city and get the permit and go the right direction, especially when you're reselling the property, or especially if it's someone's property who's could pass on soon. Everybody's going to inherit those problems, and there's no grandfather like that used to be. You can't just get away with stuff anymore.
Gotcha. So you definitely.
And I'll tell you, with technology, everybody, the cities are looking. You know where the cities get money, and so does the county on real estate. The more square footage, the more taxes, the more buildings, the more times they have to come out there and get an inspector and look at your stuff and check on you, the more money they get to collect from people. And with the technology of being able to see Google pictures and maps and from the satellites and all that stuff, we are not living in the Wild West. We're not living all hidden away anymore.
Yeah. Right on. Any other questions, Matt?
Joseph asks when this class will be available for Essentials or AIT. It'll be April, and it's going. This is an AIT.
This
AIT
will be an AIT course.
The name of the class is From the Ground Up with Bill Predebon. If you avoid permits and the place burns down, the insurance will most likely decline the coverage because you didn't have the permits or inspections. And I can say, I mean, I've heard many stories of people trying to skip out on the permits, and then bad things happen where the city comes in, they have to tear it all out. There's all sorts of problems. Yeah. It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
I don't know. That's a blanket statement. Like I actually had a house burned down on April Fool's Day, the day I was listing it. Pretty funny. But I will tell you, if you don't have a permit, and then there's an unlicensed individual that caused the fire, their work, then the insurance can get away from it, right? But if you're insuring a house, it's based on the square footage. They know the county records, that it's all gone through underwriting, and they're underwriting the house and the cause of the fire. So I think it's more along the cause of the fire. I think if you didn't use a licensed individual or you didn't have permits but you had licensed individuals, then the licensed individuals has E&O and they have insurance, and the insurance company can sue them and make them pay the insurance company back. So they'll cover the house. So it's not a blanket necessarily that if you have insurance, but you didn't get a permit, it's who did the work and how licensed they are.
I can only imagine that if somebody's willing to duck out on paying the little bit for a permit, then they're probably not too worried about making sure somebody's licensed and insured. That's just my guess there. But what are the questions? Sorry, what was that?
Well, Jay, but if you think about it, remember, when even in fix and flip permits, when you're adding square footage, and like I said, when we leave up two walls, it's a rebuild. It's a rehab permit. It's no longer a new construction permit. So the cool thing is you can use the footprint and an architectural design right on the plan. You can add a little foundation, and you don't even have to change all the underground plumbing if you don't want. You just disclose it that you left it in there. So everything's a lot cheaper, and that permit is 30 days. When you get a new construction permit and it takes 11 months, or if it takes 6 months or even 4 months for that remodel permit, then you could save 4 months and you could have the house on the market. If you used, so they still might use licensed people, but not pay the permit, not because the permit costs money, but because the time costs money. So that's why people will skip the permit, and the city will come out and then they'll be like, well, I'm going to give you the permit, but you got to do this. And then you got to do D and G. And now, what I really want you to do is put solar, some crap that they're just coming up with, and people are just fed up with it. That's what the government's trying to do, is avoid all that. So people will actually get the permit, get it in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days max. Let people go to work, let them do it more and more and more, and build them twice as fast and do it right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are out of time, but Mr. Predebon, I am super stoked for the content that you're going to create. This conversation alone has been awesome. It's been revelatory, and I'm sitting here taking notes, just going, oh yeah, I can't wait to learn more about this and this. And so thank you for being our featured trainer on the InvestEdge. Thank you for putting this class together. I can't wait to see you at the national conference, give you a big old hug, and just get a little bit of time to catch up with you, man. This is awesome.
Me too, man. I can't tell you again, Matt and Jay, how honored I am and how grateful I am for you guys and what you do. I just can't imagine the hours you put in and what you've endured over the last 4 years with the world around us. And so it goes far unseen and unsaid, but thank you so much.
Well, it truly is our pleasure. Yeah. If anyone on the line is interested in getting to know us a little bit better, we create the Renatus InvestEdge so that we can bring you the very best real estate content for individuals who are interested in building their real estate investing business. If you want to get to know us a little bit more, check out this link that we're about to throw up on the screen for you right now. You can scan the QR code. You can type that link into any browser. It's going to give you an opportunity to sit down with one of our pros for a 15-minute quick consultation so that you can get to know us better and see if we're a good fit for you. I look forward to getting to know every single one of you better. I have absolutely just fallen in love with the InvestEdge, with this opportunity, and with Renatus because Renatus rocks. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
If I can leave my 2 cents to believe, I might say, stop playing that.